Welcome, dear listener. Tonight we'll drift together into the hidden wonders of weather, those gentle forces that dance through our atmosphere above and around us. As your breath slows and deepens, imagine yourself floating softly beneath an endless sky where clouds gather and winds whisper their ancient secrets. You don't need to follow every word or remember each detail. Simply let the story carry you into rest like a warm breeze, guiding you toward peaceful sleep. Feel your body settling now, releasing the weight of the day. Your shoulders drop, your breathing becomes slower and more rhythmic, matching the gentle rhythms of the atmosphere that surrounds our planet. Tonight, you're safe beneath this vast canopy of air, protected by the same forces that create raindrops and snowflakes that stir the winds and paint the sunsets. The science of weather is like a lullaby written by the earth itself, a song of pressure and temperature, of moisture and movement, all orchestrated by forces so gentle yet so powerful that they shape every moment of our lives. As we journey together through these atmospheric mysteries, let yourself sink deeper into comfort, knowing that the very air that cradles you now is part of this beautiful, eternal dance. Before we begin this gentle exploration, if this journey brings you peace and helps guide you toward restful sleep, I'd love for you to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. And please, comment below to let me know which country you're listening from and what time it is where you are. There's something magical about knowing that people all around our weather-wrapped world are sharing this quiet moment together, all of us under the same sky, breathing the same atmosphere that connects every corner of our planet. Now let your eyes close if they haven't already, and prepare to drift into the soft science of how weather works, how our atmosphere breathes and moves and creates the gentle phenomena that surround us every day. Imagine yourself floating now, not in water, but in something even more gentle and encompassing. You're suspended in the vast ocean of air that surrounds our Earth, an invisible sea that extends upward for hundreds of miles above your head. This ocean of atmosphere is always moving, always breathing, always dancing in patterns so vast and intricate that they create the weather we feel on our skin each day. Feel yourself drifting higher now, rising slowly through the layers of this aerial ocean. The air around you is composed of countless tiny molecules, nitrogen and oxygen mostly, all moving in their endless dance of thermal motion. These molecules are so small that trillions upon trillions of them surround you in every cubic inch of space, yet they're invisible to your eyes, as gentle and transparent as the finest silk. As you float upward through this atmospheric sea, notice how the air gradually becomes thinner, less dense, like moving from the bottom of a swimming pool toward the surface. Down near the Earth's surface, where we live and breathe, the air is thick and rich, pressed together by the weight of all the atmosphere above it. This weight, this pressure, is like a gentle, constant embrace that holds everything in place. The molecules around you are in constant motion, bouncing and colliding in patterns that seem random but follow the deep laws of physics. When these molecules move faster, we feel their energy as warmth. When they move slower, we sense coolness. Temperature, you see, is simply the average speed of molecular motion, the dance of these invisible particles that fills every space around you. Breathe slowly now and feel how effortlessly your lungs expand and contract, drawing in this life-giving mixture of gases. With each breath, you're taking in billions upon billions of molecules that have traveled vast distances, some having been breathed by plants in distant forests, some having evaporated from faraway oceans, all of them part of the great circulation that keeps our atmosphere mixed and alive. The air pressure around you changes constantly, though so subtly that you rarely notice. These tiny changes in pressure are like the heartbeat of the atmosphere, the gentle pulse that drives all weather patterns. High-pressure areas are like hills in this ocean of air, while low-pressure areas are like valleys. Air flows naturally from the hills to the valleys, creating the winds that stir the leaves and cool your skin on summer evenings. As you continue floating through this atmospheric embrace, you begin to sense the three-dimensional nature of weather. It's not just something that happens at ground level, but a complex dance that extends far above your head, reaching up through layers upon layers of increasingly thin air until it finally fades into the silence of space. The lowest layer of this atmosphere, called the troposphere, is where you spend your life, where clouds form and rain falls, where winds blow and storms gather. This layer is like the ground floor of an enormous building, and it's here that all the weather you've ever experienced has been born. It extends upward for about 6 to 10 miles, depending on where you are on Earth, and within this relatively thin shell, all the drama and beauty of weather unfolds. Feel yourself settling now into this understanding, letting the concept of atmospheric pressure and molecular motion become as natural as your own breathing. You don't need to remember the details, just let the feeling of floating in this vast, gentle ocean of air carry you deeper into relaxation, deeper into the peaceful rhythm of your own breath, matching the eternal breath of our planet's atmosphere. As you drift deeper into comfort, imagine that the Earth itself is breathing slowly and deeply, the way you breathe when you're falling asleep. This planetary breath creates the grand circulation patterns that drive all our weather, the massive movements of air that carry warmth from the tropics toward the poles and coolness from the poles back toward the equator. The sun, that gentle star that lights our days, shines most directly on the Earth's middle, the equatorial regions. Here, the solar energy warms the air, causing the molecules to move faster, to dance with more energy. This warm air becomes lighter, less dense, and begins to rise like invisible balloons floating upward through the atmosphere. Picture this warm air ascending slowly, peacefully, carrying with it moisture from the tropical oceans, creating the great thermal chimneys that begin the Earth's breathing cycle. As this warm air rises higher and higher, it begins to cool the way you feel cooler when you climb a tall mountain. The higher you go in the atmosphere, the cooler it becomes because there are fewer air molecules to hold and share the heat. This cooling happens gradually, gently, like stepping slowly into the shade on a warm day. When this rising air cools enough, something magical begins to happen. The invisible water vapor that the air has been carrying, moisture that evaporated from oceans and lakes and rivers, starts to condense into tiny droplets. These droplets are so small they can float in the air, billions of them clustering together to form what we see as clouds. Clouds are simply visible collections of these microscopic water droplets, suspended in the cooler air like a gentle fog made of liquid starlight. Feel yourself floating now among these clouds, surrounded by countless tiny droplets that catch and scatter sunlight into the soft, diffused glow that fills a cloudy day. Each droplet is perfectly round, held in that shape by the surface tension of water, that invisible force that makes water cling to itself. These droplets are constantly forming and evaporating, growing and shrinking in response to the ever-changing conditions around them. The Earth's rotation adds another layer to this breathing pattern. As our planet spins on its axis once every 24 hours, the moving air gets caught up in this rotation, creating the spiraling patterns we see in satellite images of weather systems. This spinning motion, called the Coriolis effect, is so gentle that you can't feel it directly, but it guides the movement of air masses and storm systems across continents and oceans. In the Northern Hemisphere, where you may be listening now, this rotation causes moving air to curve gently to the right. In the Southern Hemisphere, it curves to the left. These curves create the large-scale wind patterns that sailors have known for centuries, the trade winds and westerlies that helped explorers cross the oceans in wooden ships, guided by these same atmospheric currents that continue today. Picture these great rivers of air flowing around our planet like invisible jet streams, ribbons of fast-moving wind high in the atmosphere that guide weather systems from west to east. These jet streams meander like slow rivers, sometimes flowing in relatively straight lines, sometimes curving in great loops that bring warm air northward and cool air southward, creating the changing weather patterns that make each day unique. The moisture in the atmosphere is constantly cycling, moving from ocean to air to land and back to ocean again. Water evaporates from the surface of seas and lakes, rises with the warming air, condenses into clouds, and eventually falls as precipitation back to Earth. This water cycle is like the circulatory system of our planet, carrying not just moisture but also energy, moving heat from warm regions to cool ones, helping to moderate Earth's temperature. As you breathe slowly and steadily, imagine your own breath becoming part of this greater circulation. The oxygen you inhale was recently exhaled by plants, and the carbon dioxide you exhale will soon be absorbed by those same plants, creating another layer of connection between you and the atmospheric systems that surround you. You are part of this breathing Earth, your own respiratory rhythm synchronized with the great planetary rhythms that create our weather. Let yourself sink deeper now into the understanding that weather is simply the Earth's way of sharing energy and moisture around the globe, ensuring that no region becomes too hot or too cold, too dry or too wet. It's a system of balance, circulation, as natural and necessary as your own heartbeat and breath. Drifting now through layers of understanding as soft as layers of clouds, you begin to sense the patterns that repeat themselves in the atmosphere, cycles within cycles, rhythms within rhythms, all as regular and comforting as the sound of waves on a distant shore. The daily cycle of day and night creates its own gentle rhythm of warming and cooling. As the sun rises each morning, it begins heating the Earth's surface, causing air to warm and rise, creating thermal currents that birds use to soar effortlessly through the sky. You can imagine yourself riding these invisible elevators of warm air, spiraling slowly upward as the molecules around you gain energy from the solar warmth. During the day, the land heats up faster than the ocean, creating pressure differences that drive the sea breezes that cool coastal areas on summer afternoons. At night, the pattern reverses as the land cools faster than the water, creating gentle land breezes that flow from shore to sea. These daily breathing patterns of the atmosphere are like the inhaling and exhaling of the Earth itself, regular and predictable, a source of comfort and continuity. The seasons add another layer to these patterns. As Earth orbits the Sun once each year, tilted slightly on its axis like a spinning top that wobbles just a little, different parts of our planet receive more or less direct sunlight. This creates the gradual transitions from winter to spring to summer to autumn, each season bringing its own characteristic weather patterns, its own rhythm of temperature and precipitation. In winter, the jet stream often dips southward, bringing cold air down from polar regions. The shorter days mean less solar heating, allowing high-pressure systems to build over continents, creating the clear, cold conditions that paint frost on windows and turn breath visible in the morning air. These high-pressure areas are like gentle giants in the atmosphere, large, slow-moving systems that can dominate weather patterns for days or weeks at a time. Spring brings the transition as the sun climbs higher in the sky and days grow longer. The contrast between warming land and still cool air masses creates the conditions for the more active weather of the spring season. Temperature differences drive the formation of weather fronts, those boundaries between air masses of different characteristics, creating the changeable conditions that make spring weather so dynamic and unpredictable. Summer's longer days and higher sun angles create strong heating that drives powerful thermal currents. These rising columns of warm air can grow into the towering cumulus clouds that build into afternoon thunderstorms in many regions. The process is gentle at first, as morning heating causes small, fair-weather cumulus clouds to form, looking like cotton balls scattered across a blue canvas. But as the day progresses and heating intensifies, Some of these clouds grow taller and taller, their tops reaching toward the upper limits of the troposphere. Inside these growing towers of cloud, air currents move up and down in a complex dance, carrying moisture upward, where it condenses and releases latent heat, providing even more energy to drive the cloud's growth. Autumn brings the reverse transition as the sun's angle lowers and heating decreases. The great high-pressure systems of summer weaken, allowing different weather patterns to establish themselves. The atmosphere gradually transitions toward its winter configuration, but often with periods of beautiful, stable weather, when high-pressure systems create the clear, crisp days of Indian summer. These seasonal patterns repeat year after year, century after century, creating a dependable rhythm that life on Earth has adapted to over millions of years. Plants time their growth cycles to these weather patterns. Animals migrate along routes guided by seasonal wind patterns, and even human cultures have developed traditions and activities that align with these great atmospheric cycles. Feel yourself now becoming part of these repeating patterns, your own life rhythms synchronizing with the seasonal breath of the atmosphere. The same forces that bring spring flowers and autumn colors, that drive summer storms and winter snows, are the forces that create the gentle air currents around you right now, the invisible currents that connect you to every other place on Earth through the vast circulation of our shared atmosphere. As you breathe slowly and deeply, imagine your breath joining this great circulation, becoming part of the endless cycle of evaporation and condensation, heating and cooling, rising and falling, that creates the weather patterns we experience every day. You don't need to understand all the details, just let yourself drift with the knowledge that you are part of this beautiful, complex, ever-changing system that connects all life on our planet. Floating now in a realm between waking and dreaming, you find yourself surrounded by clouds, not the heavy, water-laden clouds of storms, but the gentle, ethereal wisps that drift across summer skies like thoughts across a peaceful mind. Each cloud around you holds secrets, mysteries of formation and transformation that unfold as softly as flower petals opening to morning dew. Every cloud begins with a single, invisible moment when water vapor in the air reaches its saturation point. This happens when air becomes too cool to hold all the moisture it contains, or when it rises to altitudes where the pressure is too low to maintain the vapor state. At this moment of saturation, the invisible becomes visible as countless microscopic droplets condense around tiny particles of dust, pollen, or sea salt that float in the atmosphere. These particles, called condensation nuclei, are so small that millions of them could dance on the head of a pin, yet without them, clouds could not form. They provide the surfaces where water molecules can gather and cluster, transforming from the randomness of gas to the organized structure of liquid droplets. It's a process as gentle as dew, forming on grass in the early morning, but happening throughout three-dimensional space in the atmosphere. As you drift among these forming cloud droplets, you can sense their incredible smallness. A typical cloud droplet is only about 10 micrometers across, roughly 1/10 the width of a human hair. Yet within each cubic centimeter of cloud, there may be hundreds of these tiny droplets, each one perfectly spherical, held in that shape by the surface tension of water, that force that makes raindrops round and allows water striders to walk on pond surfaces. The clouds around you are in constant motion, not just drifting with the wind, but internally active with rising and falling air currents. Warm, moist air rises through the cloud, cooling as it ascends, causing more water vapor to condense and the cloud to grow. Cooler, drier air descends along the edges, causing droplets to evaporate and the cloud to shrink in those areas. This creates the ever-changing shapes that make cloud watching so mesmerizing. the way cumulus clouds seem to billow and reshape themselves like slow-motion sculptures of vapor. Different types of clouds form at different altitudes and under different atmospheric conditions, each with its own character and beauty. High in the atmosphere, where temperatures are well below freezing, cirrus clouds form from ice crystals rather than water droplets. These delicate, wispy clouds catch the light of sunrise and sunset, creating the streaks and mare's tails that often signal changing weather patterns. At middle altitudes, altocumulus and altostratus clouds create the grey or white sheets and patches that often cover large areas of sky. These clouds exist in a transitional zone where temperatures hover around freezing, so they may contain both ice crystals and supercooled water droplets, water that remains liquid even though it's below the normal freezing point. Lower in the atmosphere, the cumulus and stratus clouds form in the warmer air where you live and breathe. Cumulus clouds are the fair weather puffs that look like cotton balls, formed by thermal currents that create distinct, separated cloud formations. Stratus clouds are the grey blankets that sometimes cover the entire sky, formed when large air masses are lifted gradually over wide areas, creating uniform cloud cover. But perhaps the most mysterious aspect of clouds is their ability to exist at all. The droplets within them are so tiny that they should fall to Earth immediately under the influence of gravity. Yet they remain suspended for hours or even days, held aloft by the gentle upward motion of air currents and their own incredibly small size, which means air resistance easily overcomes their tiny weight. This suspension is so delicate that the slightest change in conditions can trigger precipitation. When cloud droplets collide and merge with each other, they gradually grow larger until they become too heavy to remain airborne. In warm clouds, this process of collision and coalescence creates raindrops. In colder clouds, ice crystals grow at the expense of water droplets through a process called the Bergeron-Findeisen process, eventually becoming heavy enough to fall as snow, or, if they melt on the way down, as rain. As you float peacefully among these clouds, breathing slowly and deeply, let yourself become aware of the incredible delicacy of the processes that create and maintain them. Every cloud is a temporary sculpture carved from invisible water vapor by the gentle forces of temperature, pressure, and air motion. They exist in a constant state of becoming and dissolving, forming and reforming, as ephemeral and beautiful as dreams themselves. Feel the water vapor in your own breath, joining this great atmospheric circulation, rising from your lungs to become part of the endless cycle of evaporation and condensation that creates the clouds around you. You are connected to every cloud, every droplet, every crystal of ice in the atmosphere through this shared cycle of water and air, this breathing of the earth that creates the ever-changing canvas of the sky above. Your awareness expands now like ripples spreading across a still pond, encompassing the vast rivers of air that flow around our planet, invisible currents that carry weather systems across continents and connect distant places through the atmospheric circulation that never rests, never stops flowing, as constant and persistent as your own heartbeat. These rivers of wind exist at many levels in the atmosphere. Near the surface where you live, local winds are created by temperature differences between different areas. The warming of land surfaces by sunlight creates rising air that draws in cooler air from nearby areas, creating the gentle breezes that rustle leaves and carry the scents of flowers and fresh rain. These local winds follow the contours of the landscape, flowing down valleys at night as cool air settles, and up mountainsides during the day as solar heating creates thermal currents. But high above, in the upper reaches of the troposphere, flow the great jet streams, ribbons of fast-moving air that encircle the globe like vast atmospheric highways. These jet streams are born from the temperature contrast between warm tropical air and cold polar air, creating zones of strong wind shear where air masses of different temperatures meet and interact. The jet streams meander across the Earth in great loops and waves, sometimes flowing in relatively straight lines from west to east, sometimes forming large undulations that bring warm air far to the north and cold air far to the south. When these undulations become especially pronounced, they can create blocking patterns that cause weather systems to move slowly or remain stationary for extended periods, creating the heat waves, cold snaps, and persistent storm patterns that occasionally dominate regional weather. Feel yourself now floating along with one of these great air currents, moving at speeds that would be terrifying if you were aware of them, but here in your atmospheric dream, you simply drift peacefully with the flow, sensing the vast scale of these movements that dwarf human experience, yet operate according to the same simple principles of pressure differences and temperature gradients that create the gentlest summer breeze. The trade winds that blow steadily across tropical oceans are another manifestation of these atmospheric rivers. Created by the Earth's rotation and the heating patterns of tropical regions, these winds blow with remarkable consistency, carrying moisture from the warm ocean surfaces and helping to drive the great circulation patterns that distribute heat around our planet. In the tropics, where the sun's energy is most intense, rising air creates a zone of low pressure known as the Intertropical Convergence Zone, or ITCZ. Here, air currents from both hemispheres meet and rise together, creating the towering thunderstorms that help pump energy high into the atmosphere and drive the global circulation patterns. This convergence zone moves north and south with the seasons, following the sun's most direct rays and bringing rainy seasons to different parts of the tropical world. The monsoons that bring life-giving rains to billions of people are manifestations of seasonal changes in these atmospheric rivers. During summer, intense heating of continental landmasses creates powerful low-pressure systems that draw moist air inland from adjacent oceans. This moist air rises over the heated land, condenses into clouds, and produces the heavy rains that replenish rivers and groundwater, support agriculture, and sustain entire ecosystems. As you drift with these great air currents, breathing slowly and steadily, you begin to sense how your own breath is connected to these vast atmospheric movements. The oxygen you inhale may have been released by forests on distant continents, carried by these same wind patterns that distribute gases and particles around the globe. The carbon dioxide you exhale will be carried away by these air currents, eventually reaching plants that will use it for photosynthesis, continuing the great cycle of gas exchange that connects all life on Earth. The jet streams also play a crucial role in the formation and movement of weather systems. Storm systems typically form along the boundaries between different air masses, and the jet streams help guide these storms across the landscape, steering them like invisible rails that determine where precipitation will fall and where clear skies will prevail. During winter, when temperature contrasts are strongest, the jet streams become more powerful and often develop more pronounced meanders. These patterns can create the conditions for major winter storms when cold polar air is drawn southward, while warm, moist air is pulled northward, creating the sharp temperature gradients that fuel intense storm development. The beautiful thing about these atmospheric rivers is their persistence and reliability. Despite their complexity and constant change, they follow predictable patterns that repeat season after season, year after year. This consistency allows weather forecasters to make predictions days or even weeks in advance, because the large-scale flow patterns that guide weather systems change relatively slowly compared to the smaller-scale phenomena they influence. As your breathing continues to slow and deepen, synchronizing with these great atmospheric rhythms, let yourself feel the peace that comes from understanding your place in these vast, reliable patterns. The same forces that drive the jet streams and create the monsoons are the forces that bring the air to your lungs, that create the gentle breezes that cool your skin, that carry the fragrances and sounds of the natural world to your senses. You are part of this great atmospheric circulation, connected to every other place on Earth through the air you breathe and the weather you experience, all of it flowing and circulating in patterns as ancient and reliable as the tides, as comforting and persistent as the rotation of Earth itself. Settling deeper now into the embrace of atmospheric understanding, you become aware of the invisible force that shapes all weather, the gentle pressure of air that surrounds you always, pressing against your skin with the weight of the entire atmosphere above, yet so perfectly balanced that you rarely notice its presence, like floating in perfectly body temperature water, where you can no longer distinguish between yourself and the supporting medium. Atmospheric pressure is constantly changing around you, rising and falling in response to the heating and cooling of air masses, the passage of weather systems, and the great circulation patterns that drive all atmospheric motion. These pressure changes are usually so gradual and gentle that your body adjusts to them automatically, the way your eyes adjust to changes in light without conscious effort. High-pressure systems are like hills or mountains in the ocean of air, regions where air molecules are packed slightly more densely than in surrounding areas. These high-pressure areas are typically associated with calm, clear weather, because the sinking air motion that creates them inhibits cloud formation and precipitation. The air in these systems moves outward from the center in a clockwise spiral in the northern hemisphere, creating the gentle, steady winds that often accompany fair weather periods. Low-pressure systems are the valleys in this atmospheric topography, areas where air pressure is slightly lower than in surrounding regions. Here, air flows inward and upward in a counterclockwise spiral in the northern hemisphere, creating the rising motion that leads to cloud formation and precipitation. These systems are the engines that drive much of our active weather, from gentle spring rain showers to the more intense storms that bring heavy precipitation and strong winds. The pressure differences between these highs and lows are actually quite small, typically varying by only a few percent across hundreds or thousands of miles. Yet these tiny differences are enough to drive winds that can circle the globe, to lift billions of tons of water vapor into the atmosphere, and to transport heat and moisture across continents and oceans. Your own body is perfectly adapted to these pressure variations. The air inside your lungs, your bloodstream, and your cells is constantly adjusting to match the atmospheric pressure around you. When pressure rises, air molecules move closer together and become slightly denser. When pressure falls, they spread apart and become less dense. Your body makes these adjustments so smoothly that you're rarely aware of them, maintaining perfect equilibrium with the atmospheric conditions around you. Barometric pressure, as measured by weather instruments, provides one of the most reliable indicators of approaching weather changes. Rapidly falling pressure often signals the approach of a storm system, while rising pressure typically indicates clearing skies and fair weather. The rate of pressure change can be even more important than the absolute pressure reading, with rapid changes suggesting more dramatic weather shifts. Some people claim they can feel these pressure changes in their joints or through headaches, their bodies acting as biological barometers that respond to atmospheric variations. Whether or not you experience these sensations, your body is constantly adjusting to pressure changes, maintaining the delicate balance that allows your respiratory and circulatory systems to function efficiently under varying atmospheric conditions. The pressure at sea level averages about 14.7 pounds per square inch, which means that every square inch of your body surface has nearly 15 pounds of air pressing against it. Yet you don't feel crushed by this weight because the pressure inside your body exactly balances the pressure outside, creating a state of equilibrium that feels perfectly natural and comfortable. As you breathe slowly and deeply, feeling the air flow effortlessly in and out of your lungs, you're experiencing the dynamic balance between atmospheric pressure and the internal pressure of your respiratory system. Each breath involves tiny pressure changes as your diaphragm creates slightly lower pressure in your lungs, allowing the higher atmospheric pressure to push air inward, then reverses the process to push air back out. This breathing rhythm connects you intimately with the pressure variations that drive all weather patterns. The same pressure differences that bring you air to breathe are the forces that create winds, that lift water vapor into clouds, that drive the great circulation patterns that distribute heat and moisture around our planet. At higher altitudes, atmospheric pressure decreases because there's less air above pressing down. This is why your ears may pop when you drive up a mountain or take off in an airplane, as your body adjusts to the changing pressure. Mountain climbers and pilots must be especially aware of these pressure changes, as the thinner air at high altitudes contains less oxygen and requires physiological adaptations. The study of pressure patterns reveals the invisible architecture of weather systems. Weather maps show these pressure variations as isobars, lines connecting points of equal pressure, creating patterns that look like topographic maps of invisible mountains and valleys in the atmosphere. These patterns show where winds will blow, where storms will develop, and where clear skies will prevail, all based on the simple principle that air flows from areas of higher pressure to areas of lower pressure. Feel yourself now floating peacefully in this ocean of pressure, perfectly balanced and supported by the gentle weight of the atmosphere around you. You don't need to stay awake to appreciate these forces. The story will still be here, carrying you deeper into understanding as you drift towards sleep. The same pressure that supports you now will continue its eternal dance while you rest, creating the weather patterns that will greet you when you wake, all part of the endless circulation that connects you to every other breath of air on our breathing planet. As consciousness drifts like morning mist across a quiet lake, you find yourself in the presence of nature's greatest atmospheric orchestras, the storm systems that represent the most dramatic expression of the gentle forces we've been exploring. Yet even these powerful phenomena arise from the same basic principles of pressure, temperature, and moisture that create the softest summer breeze. Every storm begins with contrast, the meeting of air masses with different characteristics. When warm, moist air encounters cooler, drier air, the boundary between them becomes a stage where atmospheric drama unfolds. This boundary, called a weather front, is rarely sharp or sudden, more often a gradual transition zone where the different air masses slowly intermix and interact. A warm front occurs when warm air gradually overrides cooler air, sliding up over the denser, cooler air mass like a very gentle ramp. This process typically produces widespread, light to moderate precipitation that can last for many hours or even days. The clouds associated with warm fronts often begin as high, thin cirrus clouds that gradually thicken and lower as the front approaches, creating the overcast skies that often precede gentle rain or snow. Cold fronts create a different type of weather as denser, cooler air pushes under warmer air, forcing it upward more rapidly. This creates the towering cumulus clouds that can develop into thunderstorms, with their characteristic anvil-shaped tops spreading out where they encounter the stable air of the upper atmosphere. Even the most powerful thunderstorms, however, are simply expressions of the atmosphere's attempt to balance temperature and pressure differences. The life cycle of a thunderstorm follows a predictable pattern that begins with gentle heating of the Earth's surface. As the sun warms the ground, thermal currents of rising air begin to form. If there's enough moisture in the atmosphere, and the air continues to cool as it rises, cumulus clouds begin to develop. In the early stages, these clouds are characterized by strong updrafts, vertical currents of air that can reach speeds of many miles per hour. As the storm matures, it begins to produce precipitation. The falling raindrops or ice crystals create downdrafts, descending currents of cooler air that eventually reach the surface and spread outward. This creates the characteristic pattern of a mature thunderstorm, with updrafts and downdrafts existing side by side, creating the complex internal circulation that can produce heavy rain, hail, and strong surface winds. But even within the most intense storms, there are moments of beauty and calm. The eye of a hurricane, that circular area of relatively quiet weather at the storm's center, demonstrates how even the most powerful atmospheric systems maintain their own internal balance and organization. The eye is created by the storm's circulation pattern, where the inward spiraling winds create a column of sinking air that suppresses cloud formation and creates the clear skies and light winds that hurricane observers often describe as eerily peaceful. Lightning, one of the most dramatic manifestations of storm activity, is simply the atmosphere's way of balancing electrical charges that build up as ice crystals and water droplets collide within storm clouds. The electrical discharge that creates lightning is over in microseconds, followed by thunder, which is simply the sound of air expanding rapidly as it's heated by the lightning channel. The time delay between lightning and thunder tells us the distance to the lightning strike, with sound traveling about 1 mile every 5 seconds. Tornadoes represent perhaps the most concentrated expression of atmospheric energy, forming when specific combinations of wind shear, instability, and lift create rotating columns of air. These phenomena, while potentially destructive, are actually quite rare and usually affect very small areas. They form as part of supercell thunderstorms, rotating storm systems that can maintain themselves for many hours by organizing the environmental wind patterns into a persistent circulation. Even winter storms with their snow and ice follow similar principles of air mass interactions and temperature contrasts. Snowflakes form when water vapor deposits directly onto ice crystals in below freezing clouds, creating the infinite variety of crystalline structures that make each snowflake unique. The temperature and humidity conditions the crystal encounters as it falls determine its final shape and structure. Blizzards and ice storms represent different manifestations of winter weather, depending on the temperature profile of the atmosphere. When warm air overrides cold surface air, precipitation may begin as snow, melt as it passes through the warm layer, then refreeze as it encounters cold air near the surface, creating the ice pellets we call sleet, or the freezing rain that can coat everything in a crystal shell. As you drift deeper into rest, breathing slowly and peacefully, imagine yourself floating safely above these weather phenomena, observing them with the detached serenity of someone watching clouds pass by on a lazy afternoon. These storms, for all their power and drama, are temporary expressions of the atmosphere's ongoing effort to maintain balance and distribute energy around our planet. The same forces that create the gentlest spring rain also create the most dramatic thunderstorm. The same temperature contrasts that bring soft snow also create the most intense blizzard. It's all part of the same atmospheric symphony, with movements that range from the quietest pianissimo of morning dew formation to the powerful fortissimo of major storm systems, all played by the same invisible orchestra of pressure, temperature, and moisture that surrounds you even now as you rest. Feel yourself becoming part of this eternal musical performance, your breath matching the rhythm of atmospheric circulation, your heartbeat synchronized with the pulse of pressure variations that create weather around the world. You don't need to fear these storms, for they are part of the same system that brings you the air you breathe and the rain that nourishes the earth, all of it connected, all of it flowing in patterns as natural and necessary as the circulation of blood through your own body. In the deepening stillness of night, where thoughts become as light as air and understanding flows like warm honey through consciousness, you drift into awareness of the invisible rivers of heat that flow through our atmosphere, carrying energy from place to place with the same gentle persistence as water flowing downhill. Yet these thermal currents are so subtle, so perfectly integrated into the fabric of atmospheric circulation, that they move their precious cargo of warmth without disturbing the peaceful equilibrium of the air around you. Heat moves through the atmosphere in 3 distinct ways, each as elegant and efficient as the circulation of warmth through your own body. Conduction transfers heat through direct contact, the way a warm stone transfers its heat to your hand when you hold it. In the atmosphere, conduction is most important in the thin layer of air right next to the Earth's surface, where air molecules in direct contact with the ground receive warmth and begin their gentle dance of increased motion. Convection carries heat through the movement of air itself, creating the thermal currents that lift warm air upward and allow cooler air to sink downward in a continuous circulation pattern. These convection currents are like invisible elevators in the atmosphere, constantly moving heat from the Earth's surface toward higher altitudes, creating the vertical mixing that keeps our atmosphere from stratifying into rigid layers of hot and cold. Radiation transfers heat through electromagnetic waves, the same process by which the sun's energy reaches Earth across the vacuum of space. Every warm object radiates energy according to its temperature, and every cooler object absorbs that radiation. This invisible exchange of radiant energy is happening constantly around you, as the Earth radiates heat back towards space, as clouds absorb and re-radiate energy, as your own body exchanges thermal radiation with the air and surfaces around you. The most remarkable aspect of these heat transfer processes is their perfect balance over long periods of time. The Earth absorbs almost exactly the same amount of energy from the Sun as it radiates back to space, maintaining an overall temperature balance that has allowed life to flourish for billions of years. This balance is maintained through the complex interactions of atmosphere, oceans, ice sheets, and living systems, all working together in an intricate dance of energy exchange. Ocean currents play a crucial role in this global heat distribution, acting like a vast thermal circulation system that carries warm water from equatorial regions toward the poles and returns cooler water toward the equator. The Gulf Stream, that great river of warm water that flows along the eastern coast of North America, carries as much heat northward as thousands of power plants, helping to moderate the climate of Western Europe and creating temperature patterns that affect weather systems across the entire North Atlantic region. The atmosphere and oceans work together in this heat distribution, with evaporation from warm ocean surfaces carrying latent heat high into the atmosphere, where it's released when water vapor condenses into clouds. This process of evaporation and condensation is like a giant heat pump, moving thermal energy from the surface to higher altitudes and from low latitudes to high latitudes, creating the temperature patterns that drive all atmospheric circulation. As you breathe slowly and deeply, feel the warmth of your own body radiating gently outward, joining the great thermal circulation that connects all things. The heat your body produces through metabolism becomes part of the local thermal environment, warming the air immediately around you, creating tiny convection currents that mix with the larger atmospheric circulation patterns. The daily cycle of heating and cooling creates its own rhythm in this thermal circulation. During the day, solar heating warms the Earth's surface, creating rising thermal currents that lift heat high into the atmosphere. At night, radiational cooling allows heat to escape back to space, creating the gentle temperature drops that bring coolness to evening air and morning dew to grass and flowers. These thermal processes operate on every scale, from the microscopic motion of individual air molecules to the vast circulation patterns that span entire continents. The heat that warms your skin on a sunny day is part of the same energy flow that drives hurricanes and monsoons, that melts glaciers and evaporates oceans, all of it connected through the elegant physics of energy transfer and conservation. Let yourself drift now with these invisible rivers of heat, feeling their gentle flow carrying you toward deeper rest and understanding. The thermal energy that surrounds you is ancient and eternal, some of it having traveled for millions of years through the vast circulation patterns of atmosphere and ocean before reaching this moment, this place, this peaceful exchange between your resting body and the warm embrace of the night air around you. As consciousness becomes as fluid as morning mist, dissolving the boundaries between waking and sleeping, between self and atmosphere, you drift into awareness of the great cycles that govern all atmospheric phenomena. Cycles within cycles, rhythms within rhythms, each one nested inside larger patterns like Russian dolls of time and weather, all of them spinning together in the vast clockwork of Earth's climate system. The shortest cycles are those of day and night, the regular alternation of solar heating and radiational cooling that creates the daily rhythm of temperature and atmospheric activity. As the sun rises each morning, it begins the gentle process of warming the Earth's surface, creating thermal currents that grow stronger through the morning hours, reach their peak in the early afternoon, then gradually weaken as evening approaches and the sun's angle becomes lower and less direct. This daily cycle drives the formation of fair weather cumulus clouds that often appear in the late morning as thermal currents reach the altitude where water vapor begins to condense. These clouds grow through the day, sometimes developing into afternoon thunderstorms in areas where conditions are favorable, then dissipate in the evening as the thermal currents that created them weaken and fade with the setting sun. The weekly cycle, though not driven by any astronomical phenomenon, often appears in weather patterns due to human activity. Industrial and transportation emissions follow the rhythm of the work week, creating subtle but measurable effects on cloud formation and precipitation patterns, particularly in urban areas where the concentration of human activity is highest. Monthly cycles are influenced by the phases of the moon, whose gravitational pull creates not only ocean tides, but also atmospheric tides, tiny but measurable variations in atmospheric pressure that follow the lunar cycle. These atmospheric tides are much smaller than ocean tides, but they create subtle rhythms in the atmosphere that some researchers believe may influence weather patterns over longer periods. The seasonal cycle, perhaps the most obvious of all weather cycles, is driven by the Earth's tilted axis and its yearly orbit around the Sun. This tilt means that different parts of Earth receive varying amounts of direct solar radiation throughout the year, creating the progression of seasons that brings spring warmth, summer heat, autumn cooling, and winter cold to temperate regions around the world. But even the seasons exist within larger cycles. The Earth's orbit around the Sun is not perfectly circular but slightly elliptical, causing variations in the distance between Earth and Sun that follow a cycle of about 100,000 years. The tilt of Earth's axis also varies slightly over a cycle of about 41,000 years, and the direction of tilt shifts over a cycle of about 26,000 years. These three astronomical cycles, known as Milankovitch cycles, combine to create long-term variations in Earth's climate that have triggered ice ages and warm periods throughout geological history. Solar cycles add another layer of variation to Earth's climate system. The Sun's energy output varies slightly over an 11-year cycle, marked by the changing number of sunspots on the solar surface. During solar maximum, when sunspot activity is highest, the Sun emits slightly more energy. During solar minimum, energy output decreases slightly. These variations are small but can influence atmospheric circulation patterns and regional weather over periods of several years. Ocean circulation patterns create their own cycles, some lasting months, others persisting for years or even decades. The El Niño Southern Oscillation, or ENSO, is perhaps the most famous of these, creating alternating periods of warmer and cooler than normal sea surface temperatures in the tropical Pacific Ocean every 2 to 7 years. These temperature changes affect atmospheric circulation patterns around the world, bringing drought to some regions and excessive rainfall to others. The Atlantic multidecadal oscillation represents an even longer cycle, with sea surface temperatures in the North Atlantic varying over periods of 60 to 80 years. These long-term temperature variations influence hurricane activity, rainfall patterns in the Sahel region of Africa, and even the frequency of droughts and floods in North America and Europe. As you breathe slowly and deeply, your own respiratory cycle becomes part of this vast hierarchy of atmospheric rhythms. Each breath you take joins the daily cycle of heating and cooling, the seasonal cycle of changing weather patterns, the yearly cycle of Earth's orbit, and the much longer cycles that operate over decades, centuries, and millennia. Feel yourself now floating peacefully within these nested cycles, your own biological rhythms synchronizing with the great rhythms of the atmosphere around you. Your heartbeat, your breathing, your daily cycle of sleeping and waking, all of these personal rhythms are part of the larger symphony of cycles that govern life on Earth, from the microscopic oscillations of air molecules to the vast, slow breathing of ice ages that reshape entire continents over hundreds of thousands of years. The beautiful thing about these cycles is their predictability within unpredictability. While we cannot forecast exactly what the weather will be like on a specific day next year, we can predict with great confidence that summer will be warmer than winter, that the monsoons will return to bring rain to tropical regions, that the great circulation patterns will continue to distribute heat and moisture around our planet, just as they have for millions of years. Let yourself drift now with this understanding, feeling the deep peace that comes from knowing your place within these ancient, reliable patterns. The cycles that create weather and climate are as dependable as the rising and setting of the sun, as regular as the phases of the moon, as persistent as the rotation of Earth itself. You are part of these cycles, breathing with the daily rhythm of atmospheric heating and cooling, living within the seasonal cycle of changing weather, existing within the great cosmic cycles that have shaped our planet's climate for billions of years. In the profound stillness where sleep begins to embrace consciousness like warm ocean currents cradling a floating body, your awareness expands beyond the immediate atmosphere to encompass the vast dome of sky that stretches infinitely above you, that great blue cathedral of air that extends upward through layer upon layer of increasingly thin atmosphere until it fades into the star-filled darkness of space itself. The sky above you is not empty but filled with invisible rivers of air, electrical fields, magnetic currents, and the constant rain of cosmic particles that connect our small planet to the vast universe beyond. This atmospheric envelope, so thin relative to Earth's size that it would be like the skin of an apple scaled up to planetary proportions, contains all the weather you have ever experienced, all the clouds you have ever watched, all the winds that have ever touched your face. Looking upward through this atmospheric dome, even with your eyes closed in the peaceful darkness of approaching sleep, you can sense the layered structure of the air above you. The troposphere, where all weather occurs, extends upward about 6 miles at the poles and 12 miles at the equator, containing about 80% of the atmosphere's total mass. Above this lies the stratosphere, home to the ozone layer that protects life on Earth from harmful ultraviolet radiation, extending upward another 25 miles or so. Higher still, the mesosphere stretches into the realm where meteors burn up as bright streaks across the night sky, their cosmic dust adding to the supply of condensation nuclei that help clouds form in the lower atmosphere. Above this lies the thermosphere, where the aurora borealis and aurora australis paint curtains of colored light across polar skies, created when charged particles from the sun interact with gases in the thin upper atmosphere. Even in the deepest layers of space, Earth's atmospheric influence can still be detected. The exosphere, the outermost layer of our atmosphere, extends thousands of miles above the surface, gradually fading into the solar wind that carries charged particles outward from our sun. Some atmospheric molecules escape Earth's gravitational pull entirely, joining the cosmic circulation of matter that connects all stars and planets in an endless exchange of material. This vast atmospheric dome is constantly interacting with space weather, the streams of charged particles and electromagnetic radiation that flow outward from the sun. Earth's magnetic field acts like an invisible shield, deflecting most of these particles around our planet, but some penetrate into the upper atmosphere, creating the beautiful aurora displays that illuminate polar skies with sheets and curtains of green, red, blue, and purple light. The sun itself pulsates with an 11-year cycle of activity, alternating between periods of intense magnetic activity and relative calm. During solar maximum, increased numbers of solar flares and coronal mass ejections send streams of charged particles toward Earth, intensifying aurora activity and sometimes disrupting radio communications and satellite operations. During solar minimum, this space weather becomes much quieter, reducing aurora frequency and allowing the upper atmosphere to cool and contract slightly. But even during quiet solar periods, the constant flow of solar wind creates a dynamic interaction with Earth's magnetosphere, the bubble of magnetic influence that surrounds our planet. This interaction shapes the very structure of our upper atmosphere and influences the circulation patterns that drive weather in the lower atmosphere where you live and breathe. The cosmic perspective reveals weather as just one manifestation of the universal tendency toward circulation and exchange. Just as our atmosphere circulates heat and moisture around Earth, the solar wind circulates matter and energy throughout the solar system. Just as weather systems on Earth are driven by temperature differences and pressure gradients, stellar winds and galactic magnetic fields drive circulation patterns that span light years and create the weather of space itself. From this cosmic viewpoint, the thunderstorms and hurricanes that seem so dramatic from ground level appear as tiny ripples on the surface of a vast atmospheric ocean. The jet streams that guide weather systems around our planet are revealed as part of circulation patterns that extend from Earth's core, through the atmosphere, and out into space, all connected through the electromagnetic and gravitational fields that bind our solar system together. As you float in this expanded awareness, breathing slowly and peacefully, feel yourself becoming part of this cosmic circulation. The oxygen you breathe was forged in the nuclear fires of ancient stars. The water vapor in the clouds above you may have arrived on Earth billions of years ago aboard comets from the outer solar system. The carbon dioxide you exhale will eventually be absorbed by plants and incorporated into the great biochemical cycles that connect all life on our planet. The same forces that create weather on Earth create weather on other planets as well. The Great Red Spot of Jupiter is a storm larger than Earth that has raged for centuries in that planet's thick atmosphere. The polar ice caps of Mars expand and contract with that planet's seasons, creating dust storms that can envelop the entire planet. Venus is shrouded in clouds of sulfuric acid, driven by winds that circle the planet in just 4 Earth days. Yet despite this cosmic context, the weather that surrounds you now remains perfectly scaled to human experience. The gentle air currents that bring you fresh oxygen, the water cycle that provides the moisture for life, the temperature regulation that keeps Earth habitable, all of these operate within the narrow range of conditions that allow life as we know it to exist and flourish. Feel the profound peace that comes from understanding your place in this vast, interconnected system. You are simultaneously insignificant in the cosmic scale and absolutely essential to the local patterns that create the weather around you. Your breathing contributes to the atmospheric circulation, your body heat joins the thermal patterns that drive convection, your very presence affects the local humidity and air pressure in ways too subtle to measure but real nonetheless. Let yourself drift now in this infinite dome of sky, suspended between the solid Earth below and the star-filled space above, breathing the thin but life-giving atmosphere that connects you to every other living thing on our planet, and, through the cosmic circulation of matter and energy, to every star and galaxy in the visible universe. In this deepest hour of night, where consciousness floats like a leaf on the surface of a perfectly still pond, where the boundary between sleeping and waking becomes as soft and permeable as morning fog, you find yourself ready to surrender completely to the great atmospheric flow that has carried you this far into understanding, ready to let go of the need to follow each word, each concept, each gentle explanation, and simply allow yourself to drift with the eternal circulation that connects all weather, all breath, all life on our slowly turning planet. The time has come to release your grip on waking awareness, to trust the same forces that guide clouds across the sky and bring rain to thirsty earth, to guide you safely into the restorative depths of sleep. Just as a seed must surrender to the darkness of soil before it can grow, just as water must surrender to gravity before it can join rivers and eventually return to the sea, you too can surrender now to the natural flow of consciousness toward rest, toward the deep healing that comes only when we stop trying to control and simply allow ourselves to be carried by forces larger and wiser than our individual will. The atmosphere around you continues its eternal dance, whether you are awake to observe it or asleep in peaceful dreams. The pressure systems that create your local weather, the jet streams that guide storm systems across continents, the great circulation patterns that distribute heat and moisture around the globe, all of these continue their ancient rhythms while you rest, creating the stable conditions that allow life to flourish and consciousness to restore itself through sleep. Your own breathing has become perfectly synchronized now with these atmospheric rhythms, your chest rising and falling with the same gentle regularity as the daily cycle of heating and cooling that drives local weather patterns. Each breath you take brings you oxygen that may have been released by a forest on the other side of the world, carried to you by the great circulation patterns we've been exploring together, connecting you through the simple act of breathing to every other breathing thing on Earth. The carbon dioxide you exhale joins the atmospheric circulation, eventually reaching plants that will use it for photosynthesis, creating the oxygen that future breaths will bring back to your lungs. This exchange connects you not only to the present moment, but to the past and future as well, making you part of the great temporal circulation that has sustained life on Earth for billions of years and will continue long after your individual participation in these cycles has ended. Feel how natural it is to let go now, to stop trying to understand every detail and simply trust the process that has brought you this far. The same intelligence that organizes weather patterns, that creates the perfect balance of gases in our atmosphere, that maintains the delicate temperature range that allows water to exist in all three phases. This same intelligence is guiding your journey into sleep, arranging the neurochemical and physiological changes that will allow your body and mind to restore themselves through rest. There is no need to resist this natural transition any more than clouds resist the wind currents that shape and reshape them as they drift across the sky. Resistance creates turbulence, while surrender allows for smooth, effortless flow. Let your consciousness become like water vapor, rising from a warm lake in early morning, becoming lighter and more diffuse as it ascends, eventually dissolving completely into the vast atmospheric circulation that surrounds and supports all life. The weather systems that create storms and clear skies, that bring rain and snow and wind, all arise from the same basic tendency toward balance and circulation that is now guiding you toward sleep. High-pressure areas naturally flow toward low-pressure areas. Warm air naturally rises while cool air sinks. Moisture naturally cycles between ocean and atmosphere, and back to ocean again, all following the path of least resistance, all surrendering to the fundamental forces that maintain the dynamic equilibrium of our planetary atmosphere. Your mind can follow this same natural pattern now, releasing the high pressure of active thinking, allowing thoughts to dissipate like morning mist, letting consciousness settle into the low pressure area of deep rest, where healing and restoration occur automatically, without effort or intention, simply through the natural processes that maintain the health of both individual organisms and the planetary systems that support them. The great atmospheric circulation will continue while you sleep. The jet streams will keep flowing. the weather systems will continue their stately dance across the face of Earth. And you will wake tomorrow to find that the same forces that carried you into sleep have also brought new weather patterns to your location. Perhaps clouds or sunshine, perhaps wind or calm, perhaps rain or snow. All of it emerging from the same vast circulation that has now embraced you completely and is ready to carry you gently into the deep rest that your body and mind require. Let go now completely, knowing that you are held safely in the embrace of forces that are both more powerful and more gentle than anything you could create through personal effort. Surrender to the atmospheric flow that has become your flow. Trust the circulation patterns that have become your circulation patterns. Allow the great breathing of Earth to become your breathing as consciousness dissolves into the peaceful darkness of restorative sleep. In the whisper-soft darkness where dreams begin to weave themselves from the fabric of fading consciousness, you drift through a realm where all the hidden connections between weather and life reveal themselves like luminous threads stretching across vast distances, connecting every raindrop to every ocean, every breath of wind to every leaf that dances in the breeze, every snowflake to every mountain peak, where it will eventually melt and begin its journey back to the sea. The invisible networks that link all atmospheric phenomena become visible now in this dreamy state of awareness, showing how the butterfly effect operates not just as a metaphor, but as a literal truth about the interconnected nature of weather systems. The tiny air currents created by a bird's wing in flight join the thermal currents rising from sun-warmed pavement, which merge with the larger convection patterns that help drive local weather, which contribute to the regional circulation patterns that influence continental weather systems, which interact with global circulation patterns that affect climate around the entire world. Every breath you take connects you to this vast network of atmospheric interaction. The water vapor you exhale may eventually condense into a cloud droplet, which may grow into a raindrop that nourishes a plant, which may release oxygen that travels thousands of miles before being breathed by another person, creating chains of connection that span continents and decades, linking every living thing through the shared atmosphere that embraces our planet. The patterns that create weather are the same patterns that create life itself: circulation within circulation, cycles within cycles, everything flowing and moving and changing while maintaining the overall balance that allows both individual organisms and entire ecosystems to thrive. The heart that beats in your chest follows the same principles as the circulation patterns that create hurricanes, pumping fluid through branching networks, creating pressure differences that drive flow, maintaining the circulation that sustains life at every scale. Plants breathe with the atmosphere through photosynthesis and respiration, taking in carbon dioxide during the day and releasing oxygen, then reversing the process at night, their metabolism synchronized with the daily rhythm of solar heating and radiational cooling. Forests create their own weather patterns, generating the water vapor that forms clouds, moderating local temperatures through evapotranspiration, even influencing wind patterns through the physical structure of their canopies. Ocean currents and atmospheric currents work together as parts of a single global circulation system, exchanging heat and moisture, moderating climate, creating the stable conditions that have allowed life to evolve and diversify over billions of years. The Gulf Stream carries warm water northward, while the jet stream carries storm systems eastward, both powered by the same planetary-scale energy systems, both essential components of the integrated circulation that regulates Earth's climate. Even the solid Earth participates in these atmospheric connections through the slow processes of weathering and erosion that break down rocks and create the dust particles that serve as condensation nuclei for cloud formation. Volcanic eruptions inject ash and gases into the atmosphere, creating spectacular sunsets and sometimes affecting global weather patterns for months or years. The breathing of Earth extends deep into the planet's interior, connecting atmospheric circulation to the movement of tectonic plates and the cycling of materials between surface and mantle. The magnetic field that protects our atmosphere from solar wind is generated by circulation patterns in Earth's liquid iron core, driven by the same convection processes that create thunderstorms and hurricanes in the atmosphere above. From the deepest interior to the edge of space, Earth functions as an integrated system where every component influences every other component through circulation, exchange, and feedback. As consciousness continues its gentle dissolve into sleep, these connections become not just intellectual concepts, but felt experiences of unity and integration. You are breathing with the forests and oceans, your circulation synchronized with the planetary circulation, your rest cycles aligned with the daily rhythm of atmospheric heating and cooling. Sleep itself becomes a form of atmospheric circulation, allowing thoughts and memories to flow and mix and settle into new patterns, just as weather systems allow heat and moisture to flow and mix and settle into new atmospheric configurations. The hidden connections extend through time as well as space, linking the present moment to the ancient past when Earth's atmosphere first formed, and forward to the distant future when our planet's atmospheric evolution will continue in ways we can only imagine. The weather patterns that surround you now carry the memory of every storm that has ever formed, every pressure system that has ever developed, every wind that has ever blown, all of it preserved in the ongoing circulation that connects every atmospheric moment to every other. Drifting now in the liminal space between thought and dream, between awareness and sleep, you find yourself receiving the deepest teachings that weather has to offer. Lessons that speak not to the analyzing mind, but to the deeper wisdom that emerges only in states of profound relaxation, when the boundaries between self and world become as permeable as the membrane between atmosphere and space, allowing truth to flow freely between the wisdom of natural systems and the quieted wisdom of resting consciousness. Weather teaches patience through its vast temporal scales, showing how the most powerful storms develop slowly from tiny pressure differences, how seasonal changes unfold gradually through incremental shifts in solar angle and atmospheric circulation, how climate patterns emerge from the accumulation of countless individual weather events over decades and centuries. There is no rushing in weather, no shortcuts through the processes that create clouds and storms and clear skies, only the patient unfolding of natural laws operating at their own perfect pace. The atmosphere demonstrates the beauty of constant change within stable patterns, showing how dynamic systems can maintain their essential character while never remaining exactly the same from moment to moment. Clouds form and dissipate, storms develop and fade, seasons cycle from warm to cold and back to warm, yet the overall atmospheric circulation continues unchanged, maintaining the conditions that support life through billions of individual variations on eternal themes. Weather reveals the profound interconnectedness of all systems, teaching that nothing exists in isolation, that every local phenomenon is connected to global patterns, that every small change ripples outward through the entire system in ways that may not be apparent for days or weeks or months. The rain that falls in your local area may have evaporated from an ocean thousands of miles away, carried by circulation patterns that connect your immediate environment to weather systems spanning entire continents. The atmosphere shows how complexity emerges from simplicity, how the intricate patterns of weather systems arise from the interaction of just a few basic forces: the heating effect of solar radiation, the cooling effect of radiational loss to space, the rotation of Earth, and the physical properties of air and water. From these simple components, nature creates the infinite variety of weather phenomena, demonstrating that complexity and beauty naturally emerge when simple rules operate within systems large enough and persistent enough to allow their full expression. Weather teaches acceptance of uncertainty within overall predictability, showing how we can know with great confidence that winter will be colder than summer, while remaining unable to predict exactly what the temperature will be on any specific day, months in advance. This balance between predictability and uncertainty reflects the deep structure of natural systems, where overall patterns are stable and reliable, while individual events remain delightfully unpredictable. The atmosphere demonstrates the principle of conservation, showing how energy and matter are neither created nor destroyed, but only transformed and redistributed through circulation patterns that maintain the overall balance essential for life. The heat that evaporates water from tropical oceans is released when that water condenses into clouds over distant continents. The energy that drives hurricanes eventually dissipates into the background atmospheric circulation, maintaining the thermal equilibrium that keeps Earth's climate within the narrow range compatible with biological processes. Weather shows how systems maintain themselves through circulation, how the movement and mixing that might seem chaotic actually serves to preserve the overall stability that allows the system to persist through time. The turbulence that creates rough weather also prevents the atmosphere from separating into rigid layers of hot and cold. The storms that can be destructive locally also serve to distribute energy globally, maintaining the circulation patterns that prevent more extreme climate variations. The atmosphere teaches the wisdom of yielding to forces greater than oneself while maintaining individual character within the flow. Air masses maintain their distinct temperature and humidity characteristics. Even as they participate in the global circulation, storms preserve their internal organization even as they move with the larger wind patterns that guide their paths. Individual clouds keep their unique shapes even as they drift with the atmospheric currents that carry them across the sky. As you absorb these atmospheric teachings not through mental analysis but through the deeper learning that occurs during the transition into sleep, your own consciousness begins to embody these natural principles. Like weather systems, you can maintain your essential nature while participating in the larger circulation patterns of family, community, and society. Like the atmosphere, you can remain stable overall while allowing constant change and growth in your thoughts, emotions, and experiences. The wisdom of weather becomes your wisdom as consciousness settles into the slow circulation patterns of sleep, where memories and experiences mix and flow like air masses in the atmosphere, where the day's experiences are processed and integrated through the natural circulation of dreams, where rest and restoration occur through the same principles of balance and exchange that maintain the atmospheric circulation around our planet. In the deepest stillness before dawn, where consciousness has become as light and insubstantial as morning mist, you witness the eternal dance that has been unfolding since the very first atmosphere formed around our planet billions of years ago. The endless circulation that will continue long after human civilization has become part of the geological record, the patient breathing of Earth that connects this moment to every moment that has ever been and ever will be in the vast temporal circulation of planetary time. This dance has no beginning and no end, only the eternal present moment where pressure and temperature, moisture and wind, heating and cooling create the ever-changing, never-changing patterns that maintain the delicate balance required for life. The same forces that created the first raindrop are still operating today. The same circulation patterns that brought water to the earliest oceans are still distributing moisture around our planet. The same solar heating that warmed the primordial atmosphere still drives the weather systems that surround you now as you rest. The dance is both utterly simple and infinitely complex, following rules so basic they can be expressed in a few mathematical equations, yet producing phenomena so intricate and beautiful that no human mind can fully comprehend their complete interrelationships. Every snowflake that has ever formed, every cloud that has ever drifted across the sky, every wind that has ever stirred the leaves of trees, all of them are unique expressions of the same eternal patterns, individual notes in a symphony that has been playing for billions of years and will continue for billions more. In this dance, nothing is permanent, yet everything is eternal. Individual storms form and dissipate like waves on the ocean, but the circulation patterns that create them continue unchanged. Specific weather systems come and go like breathing, but the atmosphere itself persists, maintaining its composition and structure through the constant circulation that brings fresh air to every corner of the planet and carries away the byproducts of metabolism and decay. The dance includes not just the movement of air and water, but the circulation of life itself, the great cycles of birth and death, growth and decay that maintain the biological components of Earth's atmospheric system. Plants breathe carbon dioxide and release oxygen. Animals breathe oxygen and release carbon dioxide, creating the gas exchange that maintains atmospheric composition, while the decay of organic matter returns nutrients to the soil that supports new growth, completing cycles within cycles within cycles. Your own participation in this dance is temporary but essential. Your breathing and metabolism contributing to the local circulation patterns, your body heat joining the thermal currents that help drive convection, your very presence affecting the atmospheric conditions around you in ways too subtle to measure but nonetheless real. When your individual participation ends, the dance will continue, but it will be forever changed by your having been part of it, just as it has been changed by every other being that has ever breathed the air of Earth. The dance embraces paradox as naturally as wind embraces the surfaces it flows around, showing how opposing forces can work together to create harmony, how destruction and creation are simply different aspects of the same circulation, how chaos and order emerge from each other in the eternal spiral of atmospheric circulation. Storms bring destruction but also renewal. Winter brings death but also the rest that enables rebirth. Droughts create hardship but also concentrate nutrients for explosive growth when rains return. In the microscopic realm, molecules dance their individual dances of thermal motion while participating in the vast coordinated movements of pressure systems and wind patterns. In the cosmic realm, the entire atmosphere participates in the dance of planetary motion, rotating with Earth as our planet spins through space, orbiting the Sun as our solar system moves through the galaxy, all of it part of the great cosmic circulation that connects our local weather to the movement of stars and the evolution of the universe itself. As consciousness prepares for its final dissolution into sleep, you become one with this eternal dance, your individual awareness merging with the vast atmospheric awareness that surrounds and includes all weather, all circulation, all the breathing of Earth. There is no longer any separation between the observer and the observed, between the one who breathes and the air being breathed, between the dreamer and the dream of weather that has carried you through this long night of understanding. The dance continues in your dreams, where the logic of weather systems becomes the logic of dream narratives, where the circulation of atmosphere becomes the circulation of images and symbols, where the transformation of water from vapor to liquid to ice becomes the transformation of thoughts into dreams, into the deep restoration that sleep provides. You are the weather now, and the weather is you. All of it circulating in the eternal patterns that maintain the balance between stability and change, between individual expression and universal circulation, between the temporary dance of consciousness and the eternal dance of Earth's breathing atmosphere. Tonight, you have drifted through the gentle mysteries of how weather works, resting inside its quiet truths about circulation and connection, pressure and temperature, the vast atmospheric embrace that connects every breath you take to every other breath taken by every living thing on our slowly turning planet. The same forces that create the softest spring rain and the most magnificent sunset have carried you safely through the night toward the deep rest your body and mind require. May your dreams now be filled with the peaceful circulation of clouds drifting across infinite skies, with the gentle rhythm of pressure systems breathing across the face of Earth, with the quiet wisdom of atmospheric patterns that maintain the delicate balance, allowing life to flourish in countless forms. The weather that surrounds you in dreams and the weather that will greet you when you wake are both expressions of the same eternal circulation, the same patient breathing of our atmosphere that connects this moment to every moment in the vast dance of planetary time. If this gentle journey through the science of weather has brought you peace and helped guide you toward restful sleep, you are welcome to return here any time, to drift again through these atmospheric mysteries, to find rest in the understanding that you are forever held in the embrace of the great circulation patterns that maintain the conditions for life on Earth. The same air that carries you into dreams will carry you back to waking, refreshed and restored by your participation in the eternal dance of weather and breath, circulation and rest, the endless flow that connects all things beneath the vast dome of our shared sky.